Welcome to Raj Kotecha Show, #1 podcast in Dubai, reporting live from Bali. I have found a nice little secluded restaurant space, which I can show you now from my villa. And it's all empty, so I thought I'd come down here and answer some questions that have been asked on Instagram. I have a little makeshift setup. So I'm going to talk into this microphone today, read out 6 questions that have come in, and I will answer them for you as best I can. Some are very specific and some are more casual, but all will get answered, and it's a really great episode. I really appreciate the community online for coming back to me so quickly in the last 24 hours and giving me a fun opportunity to make a podcast here today. Speaking of which, the community, if you are watching right now on Spotify or YouTube, please give us a 5-star rating on Spotify. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, leave us a comment, like, that would all be super appreciated, and 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast. There is no Alex for me to say run the music. I'm going to edit this video myself, and so me, myself, Raj, run the intro reel. All right, so let's get into it. Some of these questions are quite specific, and so we'll answer them in specific terms, and then some of them are a little bit more jokey and light, in which case I'll answer them the same way. So the first question is from Tushar Sukwani, who asks, I want to create a community like you have. How do I get started? Now, communities are made up of multiple individuals, and so in that there's a lot of variances and nuances, and so to create one exactly like I have is always going to be impossible, because the moment that I did what I did, I'm assuming you're asking about my friends, your friends, that moment has passed, and the people that are involved and the reasons why they got involved, all those unique set of circumstances have passed. So maybe what I can do is answer this from a point of view of more generally how one creates a community. And I think when it comes to community, the first thing that you're looking for is some sort of commonality. You've got to ask yourself, why have people joined this community? Is there some sort of common goal or values or principles, morals or ethics or beliefs that they all have in place? And can you be the person to communicate that to them and communicate why that's valuable to you, and then create a platform where they can all come and enjoy and be present in that moment? So if I break down my friends, your friends, clearly the point is that you've got a room full of people that want to make friends or believe in the value of friendship or having more friends, or the value that friendship brings to their lives outside that room as well. And so they come to have an accelerated experience of that. And so the question is, if you want to build a community, firstly, what need are you addressing? If that need has not been addressed already, then that's definitely going to be advantageous to you, because that means that nobody else is already playing in that space. And that need could be, I always make the joke in podcasts, it could be left-handed bowlers or people that like vegan custard tarts. There's a whole bunch of niches that people are involved in. Or you can build a community around something which is like much more broad, like friendship. And so I think the first thing to do, if you want to get started, is figure out what that need is. The next thing is to make sure that you don't put yourself under pressure for that community to be big. My friends, your friends is 4,000 folks have signed up for it. So the idea is, like, do you get scale for it, or can you build up into something big? But when we started with just a dozen people, 15 people max, that invited their friends. And so the way that you get started is to recognize when you're at the start, and those numbers are not always going to be huge. And then the next thing is have some sort of idea as to how you might want to grow that community. Now, there's 2 things. There's the way that you engineer community growth, and then there's also just being close to the community and figuring out what they want next. So the way that you engineer growth is you obviously need to let people in the community know about each other, so that the incentive is more than just your offering when it comes to building that community or wanting to be part of that community. And the next is just to stay close to your community members and continue to ask them what's relevant to them. How can you continue to add value to them above and beyond what you did when you first started that community? So I think if you take those 2 to 3 principles and apply them, you'll have a great shot of building a community. And if you've got any really specific questions, then send me a voice note on @RajKotecha on Instagram, and I'll give you some specific advice. Voice notes, keep them under 1 minute, and I'll do the same with my replies. Next question. DJ Tony Mendez asks, when is our next cigar talk? So you're in luck, Tony. I mean, you are in luck, and also you're not in luck, because at the moment I'm away in Bali, as I mentioned. So I'm going to be on the road for the best part of a couple of months, but when I'm back, I will certainly sit down with you, and I can't wait to have a cigar with you. It's going to be a good time, like it was 4 or 5 years ago when we did it last. And I'll say this as well, which is interesting about our next cigar talk versus our last one. I really respect anybody who has a ton of patience with me and my schedule, because if you're a DJ, if you're an active business person, or you're somebody who travels a lot, has a lot of things going on, by virtue of that, and by me being one of those people as well, it means that we don't see each other that often. And so what I really would like to thank Tony for, and a lot of people that are like Tony, is just their patience in understanding that when we do try and reach out with each other, as hard as we try, it might not happen on the first, second, third, or fourth instance, but when it happens, it's always really special. So, yeah, Tony, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you soon, and congratulations on your new venture at JW Marriott Marquis in Business Bay. Can't wait to come over and check out what you've built there. Next question by R.A. Timberlake. Where did you get your taste in music? Well, your taste is something, it's a response, right? So I guess maybe to come back a step is to ask, where did I first kind of start my relationship with music? And if you've heard any of my interviews before, it's really clear, I think, for me, that my relationship with music started at home. My dad sings. It's always been a pro music household. There was always a radio inside my mum's kitchen. And on top of that, because I worked in a shop, there was a sound system in the shop that was playing music in the background for customers, that was playing a lot of commercial music. So because I spent a lot of time in the shop, I would obviously hear a lot of music. And when you're listening to commercial radio, you typically tend to hear the same record on the radio at least 4 or 5 times a week. So it's easy to then figure out what you like and what you don't like. And for me, I noticed that a gift that I was given was the ability to memorize beats and lyrics. So that allowed me to get a much stronger affinity with certain types of music. In the 80s and early 90s, it was a lot of pop music. In Manchester specifically, there was a lot of house music and a good amount of rock. And then I naturally just gravitated towards hip-hop music, which is kind of where I probably have a lot more of my music industry relationships today. I would say one thing that I've never talked about before, though, is probably my uncle's role in my relationship with music, because my uncle, who is, I would say, 20 years older than me, so not huge, really. When I was 8 years old, he'd have been 28, and so he's peak listening to pop music and things like that. That would have been about 1988, 1989, when he would do, we all used to live together, my mom, my dad, my dad's brother, both my grandparents, me and my little sister, 7 of us in a 2.5 bedroom flat above a shop. And so there was a time where me and my uncle would go and do little missions, like going to the cash and carry to buy stock for the shop. And it was at that time that we would listen to pure pop music, whether it be Bros, whether it be Pet Shop Boys, and a lot more of that kind of music. So I would say that at that time I was able to go levels deeper with the music in terms of listening to it whilst I'm riding around. And my taste specifically when it comes to my affinity for hip hop music also came from tricky circumstances, because when I was growing up as a one of a few brown people in my area, and it was the 80s and 90s, so there was definitely a lot of bullying and racism around. The closest kind of operating system musically that I could find myself gravitating towards was hip-hop music, because you're listening to Ice-T and Ice Cube and NWA and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre talking about what they're going through at the hands of institutional racism and the police. And I was obviously going through a lot of fighting and violence at the time as well. So when I heard these black people rapping about their experience on the West Coast of the US and their courage that they were able to muster up to fight back and fight the power, literally, I found that I gravitated more towards that. So I kind of developed a lot of my identity around that as well. I found it easy to relate to. There wasn't many other people that were saying what they were saying and making music the way they were making it that I found as relatable. So my specific taste and my love for hip-hop came from that era. And the gateway drug for me actually was, ironically, Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer and that much more poppy stuff. And you listen to what you listen to. If I was in London and I was listening to DJs in the early days of Westwood or 279 or these kind of people, I'm sure I'd have listened to a lot more grimy street stuff and even UK hip-hop. But in Manchester, it just wasn't that kind of sound. It was hardcore house and mixed in with hip-hop and soul and northern soul. And so it started off quite commercial, and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole. As I got a little bit older, I was able to go to shops and buy CDs, and it's at that point I could start choosing what kind of records I liked, whether it be Biggie or more Tupac records, Wu-Tang Clan, of course. And then that's how I kind of honed my taste. But now, as a DJ, I have about 50,000 songs that I carry around on my laptop. And so I think that's one reason why I've built up a good following, in the sense that people know that wherever you want to go on the dance floor, I can go there. You want to go even today down the Afrobeat or UK rap like genres, or you want to start looking at like more old school stuff, which is really my sweet spot, then that's where we can go. So yeah, my taste is broad and varied, but I definitely narrowed in towards hip hop just because of it just spoke to me as an adolescent when I was growing up and as heading into my teenage years. Next question. At Ritesh asks, how are you so sexy? Can you train me, please? When I grow up, I want to be just like you. There's still hope, Ritesh. There is still hope. If you ask 100 people, some of them would say that there is still hope. So never give up, my friend. Why am I so sexy? Because I own it. I'm the first person to say how sexy and good looking I am. And I'm confident and creative. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would humble brag. And, you know, for me, it's not going to be height or athletic ability. I'm just a cool mofo. Next question is from Priyesh. Red pill or blue pill? I think I know what this means. I think this is a Matrix analogy. I don't know. I'm assuming it's an existential question, which allows me to interpret it a little bit. But what I will say, which is quite strange, the biggest red-blue war in the world, which is happening in UK politics at the moment, I find it a bit suspect that somebody in Parliament did something wrong. The Prime Minister resigned after being under weeks of pressure, and then moments before that, Rishi Sunak resigned, and then moments after the Prime Minister resigned, Rishi Sunak already had a montage video ready with a logo. It was edited and scripted, and he's making his case for being the PM. So I don't know whether you're red pill or blue pill. I feel like both those pills basically have the same powder inside, and a lot of it is prescribed. I like what I did there. That's a nice little metaphor. Pills, prescriptions. Yeah, so in the context of politics, neither at the moment. Absolute shoddy pantomime from what I'm seeing in the UK. And if that's not what you wanted me to answer, then feel free to throw me another question, Priyesh. I appreciate you asking the one that you did. The next question is from Sham Panch. He asks, raising money / getting investors as an individual creator versus as a business, under talked about in my opinion. So I'm guessing you want me to talk about the differences between both. And of course, in all situations, you know, these can be nuanced. So maybe let's talk about the commonalities. I think whether you're looking at raising money as a individual creator versus as a business, ultimately, an investor relationship that you might want to generate is a relationship of matching. And so on the investor side, how do you read an investor? Really, it comes down to their investor thesis, which is what is it that they're hoping to invest in and what kind of returns are they looking for? That doesn't really matter whether you're a creator or a business. And in fact, you know, I know that Sham is a musician. If he's going to be in the business of creation, then the question is, what kind of money will trickle out the other side? Now, if you've got an ethical investor who's not necessarily looking for always a capital upside, then what is it that you're able to offer in terms of change or impact to the world that they might want to invest in, where they might take a more modest or even an even return on their capital, but they are much more interested in, you know, the contributions that you might make to the future of music. But in most cases, I think, you know, the raw economics of it is what kind of return are they looking for, and are you going to be able to provide it for them? I've got some friends that are investors, very successful ones, famous ones, I would argue. And really what it comes down to, I noticed once I approached them with a deal that had been offered to me by a client, I remember I showed them the deck and I was like, this is a company that's looking for money if you want to deploy some at the moment. And they said, oh, I can see this being a £3 to £4 million business, but I can't see it being a $1 billion business. And I said, is that what you're interested in? And he said, yeah, I've got 2 of those at the moment. And so it's about matching. It is a relationship, and also understanding as well that really it's about debt and giving up equity. And as a person who's raising money, if you're prepared to give up a part of what you do, long term, short term, whatever the case may be, then you've got to make sure that you want that person to be in your life for a long period of time, and sometimes even have a voice in calling some big shots in your career. And do you want that person to be able to call shots in your career 3-5 years down the line because of an entry point that you gave them into your business at this point that you're in right now? My advice is, especially for a creator, is to hold out as long as possible to get money that you own from as many places as you can, whether it be a day job, whether it be savings, and own as much of your destiny as possible. And I would direct you to a young chap by the name of La Russell, L-A-R-U-S-S-E-L-L, I believe. He is kind of the archetype at the moment for upcoming artists. He's doing an incredible job. And also Russ himself, R-U-S-S, has done an incredible job. Go check out their interviews, how they've done what they've done, and when they've had capital, how they've deployed it. And then final question, I love this question. What is the biggest change you've seen Dubai go through since you got here? So it was really interesting because when I got to Dubai, and let's call that 2014, there was the beginning of a process in Dubai, which I believe was planned because they said so, and the country delivered on it, which was Dubai's need to shift from a place that was considered globally a five-star place and a high-end luxury place to more of a mid-market place. So what does that mean in real terms? That means more mid-market restaurants, all hotels not being considered five-star or labeled five-star, heading into the 3- and 4-star categories. But the biggest shift I've seen is Dubai's ability to plan and embrace moving in that direction. I think they've done an incredible job. I think that's been a net positive for immigration because now people are coming knowing that they can live much more sustainable lifestyles. People are not coming in as they were in 2014, I would argue, for a short period of time to do the arbitrage thing of, coming in tax-free or taking advantage of the fact that there were skill shortages. The biggest change I've seen is Dubai moving towards normality. Now, that normality has to be adjusted for Dubai and the Middle East. It's, normal in Dubai is considered luxury in other places. It's funny, last time I came to Bali, when I got back, I was telling the person that I came with, I was like, we live where people holiday, which is Dubai, and we holiday where people honeymoon, which is like Bali, where I am now. So the biggest change I've seen is its ability, Dubai's ability to start off as this very, very premium location with all premium prices attached to everything, whether it be rent, food, restaurants, entertainment, nightlife, to something which is a little bit more inclusive, a little bit more expansive. And I think that's given a lot of opportunities for a lot of people, myself included, in the brands that I've built in Dubai. So yeah, great answer. And Kit, great to see you back in the market. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting contributions coming from you and your team in the near future too. If you enjoyed this show, make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review on Spotify, especially if you're watching on video form. I'd love to hear that that's what you're doing. Drop me a DM at Raj Kotecha. 5-star rating and review on Apple would be amazing as well. And YouTube gang, hit the subscribe button. I would super appreciate that. Likes, follows, all that stuff all helps with the algorithm and helping us get discovered. Hope you enjoyed this nice short, quick Q&A special episode of the Raj Kotecha Show. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.